And good morning, everyone. Welcome to the year threes. The microphone. All right, we're starting off 2023. May it be a blessed year. So a quick word of prayer. Father God, we thank you for this new year. We thank you, Lord, and we ask for your blessings as we start our studies. And Father God, that you will guide each student, because we know that wisdom and knowledge, pure good knowledge that makes the world a better place, comes from you. Open every mind and heart, we pray, Lord, as we begin now with your blessing, as we seek out your truth and your word. In Jesus Christ's holy name we pray. Amen. All right, brothers and sisters, those of you who might be familiar, we changed up the order a little. We're going to start this year off with a bit of the management courses. And also, this is normally, we've done this in 2 lectures, but we're going to do this in 1 lecture this year. It's a bit long. It's 41 slides, this lecture. So I'm going to be going through very quickly. So use your notes, consult your notes when you do the assignment. It's a bit of a long assignment. Please read carefully. I know I've marked this assignment, and there's a lot of folks who don't answer some of the questions on this assignment. They don't see it. Please, I know it's only like 5 questions, but some of those questions ask for about 3 things. So please just read the questions very carefully when you answer it. All right, now, brothers and sisters, when we divide up organizations and we speak about organizations, every country will have its own sort of laws and variations on this. So it's always wise to check your own country's laws and to just be clear what's going on, because it's hard to do a thing like this that's relevant in every country in the world. So there are sort of laws, but there are many similarities that and sort of principles that come through that always seem to work through. A lot of ministries around the world are not registered with their governments, and they don't comply with statute requirements, which can cause problems. Some churches don't have that option in their country. Some countries are closed to the gospel, but there's a lot of churches that make this mistake, that don't work according to the laws of their country, and it causes unnecessary problems. If you break the law and the government prosecutes you, that's not persecution, right? That's you breaking the law, right? We can't say we've been persecuted if we break in the law and the government wants to rightly prosecute us. It's vitally important to have an understanding of what it means to operate an organization and whether to register your organization or not. All churches need to know the laws of their country and keep up to date with changes. All right, 2 big issues we look at. There's 2 big divisions: for-profit and non-profit organizations. Organizations that operate for the purpose of a profit, and some that operate for not for making a profit. Right? There's a huge difference. Obviously, the church, and what we're concerned with today, we are non-profit organizations. For-profit organizations can have shareholders and owners who have made an investment. They've bought into the company. Sometimes they've founded the company, started the company, and they want to make a return on their investment. They want to get something back for their money. Therefore, they want to make a profit. Non-profit organizations does not have shareholders. There's no shares. You can't normally buy into them. Organization was created for the purpose of making a benefit to the community, making a benefit to people. The church falls under that category. We have to give a benefit to people, not to turn a profit. Therefore, another big difference is that profit organizations have to pay taxes. Non-profit organizations are typically exempt from paying tax on their income. There are some taxes that will still apply to us in the church. There can be, depending on, the laws of the country, but typically, like our church, we don't have to pay any tax on the money we take. For-profit organizations will show either a profit or a loss. When you do the books, you'll see either a profit or a loss on their books. And with us, we speak about, those of you who know church finance, will speak about a surplus or a deficit. We don't speak about a profit or a loss. Have we taken in more money than what we've spent, or have we spent more than what we've taken in? Okay, for-profits are governed by the rules contained in the articles or a memorandum of association or some other equivalent, right? These will differ country to country. There are still a few socialist communist countries around the world that don't allow private organizations, at least not according to their books. It's not many of these left. Just about every country in the world, or the overwhelming majority, will allow some kind of private sector with some kind of private for-profit companies. There's not so many pure socialist, pure communist countries anymore in the world. There are a few. Non-profits are required to operate by way of a constitution. Our church too must draw up a constitution. Companies will draw up their charters and they will have a way of operating. Non-profit like us, like our church, will have what's called a constitution, a set of rules we are required to make and work around. Directors of for-profit companies are paid directors' fees. We don't have the time to go into the different types of directors. You can get executive directors, and you can get, independent directors and managerial directors. Companies have different kinds of directors who are paid according to the charter of the company. Generally, non-profit organizations are run by volunteers and therefore don't get paid for being directors. For instance, a director can get shares in a company, can be awarded shares. There's no such thing in a non-profit. But we can still have salaries. People can still be paid a salary and make a living. Sometimes it's not a livable wage. It can just be a token wage, but people can get paid a salary still for a non-profit organization, such as the church pastor can get a salary from the church. For-profit hire staff who are paid and receive benefits. That's very common. Typically, non-profits tend to rely on volunteers, but as we said, can have paid employees, especially with big non-profits like, say, the St. John's. I mean the Red Cross. I was thinking of the Red Cross. The Red Cross is a gigantic, famous non-profit, but they'll have many paid employees working for them. All right, organizational culture. It's the customary and traditional way of thinking and doing things within an organization. Or a culture is an organized group of people operating with shared values. The church has its own organizational culture. Definitely you get organizational culture, and from organization to organization it differs. All right, a certain private, like a mining company, will have a definitely very distinct, if you go and work for them, there'll be a culture and a way of doing things in the mining company. It's definitely a way of doing things. If you come to a church, there's another way of doing things. Different organizations have different cultures. The church has its own culture. An organization must be evaluated in terms of its values and its behaviors and structures. All right, so an organization, to be a good organization, must have good values, and there must be a proper behavior and structures within the organization. Right, organizational values. What are good organizational values? I just want to check the time, brothers and sisters. All right, we'll be on slide 6 or 42. Fair and just treatment and fair pay is an important part. Many folks will moan, complain that they're not properly paid. You'll find that they're not properly treated. The labor courts are full and overflowing, and the unions have their hands full of complaints all day long. Some justified, some unjustified. It's a big thing. It's a constant wrestling match in every organization. And the church will have its fair share. We've got our share of falling out fights. People feel they're not being fairly treated. So any organization's values must strive towards fair treatment. Doesn't mean we'll be happy. It's not the same thing that means the church will always be happy, because we'll always have our problems, but we must have organizational values that promote fairness. Interaction between leaders and subordinates must be controlled by the values of the organization. All right, as I say, there will always be struggles and strife in that, but there must be a clear chain of command. There must be a clear way that subordinates and leaders can speak. Expression of accountability and authority to create trust in both sides and both inside and outside the organization, definitely. Accountability as well as authority. Authority to carry out your work, to have their power and ability to carry out, and accountability to hold people accountable for what they do. Boy, if we had 2 lectures, we could spend a little time speaking about accountability. Articulation of long-term vision. The Bible says where there's lack of vision, the people perish. Organization must have a vision. Many of you working for private companies will speak about the company's vision. So too with the church, we must have a vision. The scriptures actually lay down our vision. We must have a vision to carry the gospel to the world. We must have a God-honoring vision in a church. Opportunity given for everyone individually, yes. And everyone gets a chance to work to their best, to work towards their strengths. Everyone must be given a chance. All right, we can't be closed, we can't be cliques. Otherwise, it breeds problems with all sorts. Values must be structured towards giving everybody a chance. Work for everyone at a level considered consistent with their potential capability. So, in other words, we don't give the hardest jobs to the newest people and so forth and so on. We don't ask the accountant to fix the generator. We don't ask the maintenance guy to balance the books and publish the financial statements. We give people work according to their ability and exactly what the Bible says. The body's got different parts, and different parts, there's different functions, and people have different spiritual gifts. And the Bible will actually go on at length about it. So we must be rational, logical, practical, and give people work and duties and let people work according to their own specific gifts. Opportunity for everyone to progress. Opportunity for everyone to climb the ladder where possible. Absolutely, as part of fairness. All promotions, all appointments must be done in a fair manner. The role of managerial leadership in every organization is to make these organizations operationally real. In other words, the people must bring it into being. They must try and work the organization according to these values. Organizational structure. The structure of an organization is a framework used to divide its processes and activities in order to define its business operations. We got to have a structure. The Bible also lays down for the church a structure. Speaks about elders and deacons. That's one of the things it speaks about. The roles of an apostle was spoken about in the Bible. A thing must have a clear structure. Let there be order in church meetings. We've got to build and work around a structure. Otherwise, what you've got is chaos. Everyone trying to do their own thing. It's the same way for a worldly company, a worldly organization. It's the same way for the church. We've got to have a framework, a structure. Who's in charge, then who's in charge, and so forth and so on. Companies as well as churches need well-defined structures that list management leadership activities and who is responsible for which activity. We've just said so. It's got to work that way. Otherwise, what you've got in your hands is a mess. And the thing won't work, and eventually it'll stop working and disappear. Organizational expectations include an organization's expectations, experience, philosophy, and values that hold it together. It's a fancier way of saying the same thing. We've just said it. But an organization expects and wants what it's trying to do. The church, in the church's case, we're trying to spread the gospel. It is expressed in its self-image, inner workings, interaction to the outside world, its interactions within it, and future expectations. All right, a lot of big words for a simple thing. As we've structured the church, so people will see how we have worked. It will show us if we are not working correctly, we'll be a mess. We'll look like a mess to the outside world. When we run the place properly, we'll look like a thing that invites people in. And people might want to join, will want to join us, and the church will grow. Again, it's based on shared attitudes, beliefs, customs, written and unwritten rules that become valid over time. I'm not going to go into such things, but That's basically it. It's culture. Whilst the ministry should never be a business, okay, and church is not a business. It needs to run on a professional basis, much like a good business. Some of the fundamental truths that apply to a company also apply to a ministry. All right, so although we are not here to run a business, there are some good business ideas that the church can benefit from. There's some good logical things like controlling costs, cutting costs, not wasting the money. It's a good idea. It's some business things. We can use spreadsheets. We can use software, accountancy software. There's some good packages out there. Our church uses them too. It's just good business model. After all, we are called to be stewards. There's a whole thing we've done about stewardship. We are just about being good stewards. Right, like everything else in life, you need a plan as well as a vision for your ministry. Right? So we need a vision, what we want to do. We want to spread the gospel. We make a plan how to run the church, set the church up, and we stick with it. All right, so now we're going to look at just different types of structures. I'm going to go through it. Some of these kind of things will be in the assignment. All right, so these are not necessarily biblical stuff, but these are things we find in the world. Yeah, we have an example of a flat types of a functional structure, also known as a flat structure. You have head office. That R&D stands for research and development, production, marketing, accountancy, finance. So you have a head office and you have all the little sections in a business. Many of you will work for businesses that are structured around this. This is a thing we find in the world. The downside is that coordination and communication can be restricted. Departments can sort of be things on their own. I know it myself. I work for a large company. Departments can be a bit tribal in a thing like this. This department and that department don't always get on the best. And nobody likes head office. Everyone hates head office, and a couple of people in the lower structure hate each other too. Right? But that's one thing that's very common that we find, the flat organizational structure. Divisional structure, each level reports upwards and each manager has a level of control. Okay, it's just another way of dividing it. That you can find in even bigger. Like giving us an example here. This is divided up. You have head office in some country, then you will have the America section, the section of the company in America, the section in Africa, the section in Asia, in Australasia. This is a big multinational company. Might find itself structured like this. And then what will happen is people from the company typically won't even know who the guys are in another part of the world. You find this something like in an oil mining company that's mining oil throughout the world. Can be a good example. Product, all right? The product. So we've got a head office, yeah, church, Bible college, missions. That's if you've got a company or an organization that has very different functions, that has very different things. I mean, they might be running schools, then you might have say an organization in one section does schools, one section does research and development, one section is involved in some kind of production. It's a company that's got a lot of different kinds of functions. I mean, a car manufacturer, you might have the production side where they build the cars, and you might have a sales side where they're selling all the cars. You might have all the agencies. Then you're dividing up by function. Customer structure is based on individual businesses or government consumers. Great, so they've got a one-year head office, ministers, ministries, management. You can divide them up among based on government structures. Productivity, right? Some terms we need to know. Okay, productivity, you hear about it. Many of you have heard about it. Some of you need no introduction to productivity. But it's the effectiveness, efficiency, and productivity are terms used to try and understand an organization's performance, productivity, how we perform, how much work are we doing. Companies are always trying to maximize their productivity. All right, so they've broken down these two words. Effectiveness is doing the right thing in terms of the action taking the right actions. Efficiency is in terms of the time and energy needed to do the task, so to be effective and efficient. Right? Effective is to do the right thing. Efficient is to do the right thing quickly. You'll hear about things like turnaround time. Right, so I'll put there a little thing to remember: doing the right things and doing things the right way in order to be productive. Business strategies. Wise planning. Okay, folks, I'm just going to keep moving on. So I'm on 13 or 42 here, and almost half the time's gone. Wise planning implies that we ask God for his wisdom, as though not to operate in our own wisdom. It means being thoughtful in the process, thinking things through what we've planned, not being impulsive. Sometimes we have to take our time with the thing, right? So strategy is always going to be better when it's wisdom. And the Bible speaks about wisdom, and we had a lovely, wonderful sermon this morning for those of you who joined it on wisdom. Common sense is lacking in many people. It's basic ability to perceive and understand things that are shared common to nearly all people, or can be reasonably expected of nearly everyone. Common sense. Right? Common sense, the simplest form of wisdom, is to have some common sense. It's needed. We must understand. Folks, we can't just operate according to our ideology. It doesn't work like that. So I feel that everybody should own a house and a car. Okay, a lot of people, I can dream of a wonderful world, but we must be practical. How are we going to work towards it? Keeping abreast of the facts means good record keeping up to date with what's happening outside our organization and how far we are in achieving our goals. It means continuous assessment of where we are in relationship to where we want to be. That's things like strategy, common sense, being practical. Those are things we need to all the time. What do we have? What can we do with it? What is the best we can do with it? All the time. That is operating wisely and being a wise steward. So strategy is a method or plan chosen to bring about a desired future. That's our strategy, a method or a plan that we're going to work towards. Targets, that is what's going to tell us how successful you are. If we say, for instance, it's not a good example, but it's as an example, we want to save 50 people. We make that the target for 2023. And we find that we do convert 50 people, then according to that target, we've done well. I know we don't work like that in the church. But for instance, a company might want to manufacture 100 cars this year. If they manufacture 95, they only miss their target by a little bit, right? So targets make useful measurements, useful indicators. Goals works with targets. Indicators establish, determine whether we have achieved our objectives, right? So goals. Same as a target, but goals, they say, are usually measurable. Goals, they speak about SMART goals, all right? Goals must be smart. They must be able to be stated simply. They must be measurable. I've not written down the acronym here. I know it worked. We've worked with them. They must be, I know the T stands for time-orientated. All right, R is realistic. Let's speak about goals, what goals must be. You can Google this, by the way. I'm not going to go into it. But goals must be smart. Objectives are little goals along the way, the steps along the way to our big goals. We set a main goal for the year, and we have little steps along the way where we can check our progress. Relationship of strategy to mission and vision. Our mission is what we do. This is our ultimate objective. Our vision is how we do our mission. Our strategy, the plans we implement using the assets to achieve our objectives through effective goal setting. Right? There's a lot of words, but to be practical, simple, stay on the track. All right. Components of strategy, brothers and sisters, I'm going to go through. Intent means we must be intentional, means must be determined. Right? The leadership of a church must be determined to do its job properly. Simple as that. Purpose, what we do. What we do in the church is we spread the gospel, we preach the word. Strategic triangle, the relationship between us and our donors and our beneficiaries. All right, we have to work with it. In other words, how we relate to the people who give us money. What is our relationship? In the church, we are not beholden to them that we change our message. right? And we'll make a stand. We don't change what we preach, but we are grateful. We preach to them. They usually are part of us. They're usually part of the body. Strategic mission is our long-term plan. We operate in order to achieve our mission and vision. All right? Strategic human resource, HR management. The body has many parts. Right? The companies have a whole way of doing it. The Bible has its way of doing it. Right, an example of a mission and vision for the church, John Wesley's 5 imperatives. I just want to go through them. Right, knowing the mission and values, setting up objectives, current situation analysis, formulation of strategy. Sorry, John Wesley's 5 imperatives, I never wrote them down. I think I was supposed to just say them. That all people should be saved, all people can be saved, all people must be saved, all people can know that they are saved, and all people can be saved to the utmost. That was his intent. It's just an example. You can go and Google him yourself. Knowing the mission and vision, right? Here's an example. Set up our objectives, our short, medium, and long term. Current situation analysis, both ministry and the non-profit organizational norms, we must know. Formulation of a strategy for meeting and setting the objectives. Proper implementation of a set of strategies. Control and feedback. So I just want to do a time check. Sorry, brothers and sisters, this one's a bit, we're a bit crunched for time. All right, the 14 principles of management. Here is a hint, please listen. This is in the assignment. All right, I have structured these notes so that you can get most of 70–80% of the assignment out these notes, especially from here onwards. So, brothers and sisters, I've helped as much as I can. Brother Gavin does it as well. So I'm going to go through them quickly. These will come up and be brought up. You'll have to list them. Right, the 14 principles of management was created by scientist Henry Fayol, who lived across the 18th and the 1900s. Okay, they serve as a guideline for decision-making and management actions. They're still relevant to this day, even though he's coming on, he died almost 100 years ago. Division of work. Employees are specialized in different areas, have different skills, so let them work out their expertise. That's actually what the Bible tells us. Body has many different parts, and people must function according to the part they are. Authority and responsibility. Managers must be given the authority to give orders and do things and put things that they need to do. Same in the church. Elders and deacons have to have authority. The pastor must have authority. If you're not going to listen to the pastor, you're going to have a problem. And the Bible's clear that leaders in the church do have authority. Also, just as important, leaders in the church have responsibility. And people must be held accountable. They must have the power to do their jobs and still be subject to being responsible. And there must be power to hold them accountable. It must go both ways, in other words. Discipline, right? Let there be order in church meetings is what the word says. Things must be ordered. There must be good conduct and respectful interactions in any place of work, twice as much for the church. Good conduct and respectful indications, right? It's not an uncontrolled bedlam mess. Let there be order in all church meetings and with all church work. Unity of command. An individual employee should receive orders from one manager, and in turn the employee is answerable to that manager. If tasks and related responsibilities are given to employees by more than one manager, it just leads to confusion. In work, it's best that every team has one boss. That things work that way. Otherwise, it's a mess. Then this one told me to do this, and this one told me to do that, and you've got a mess on your hands. In the end, the person doesn't know what they're supposed to do. Unity of direction. All focus, all employees' activities can be linked to the same objectives. In other words, a team, a department in a company must all be working towards one direction. In our case, the church, the Bible has given us the direction. We work for the spreading of the gospel. When all these fancy evangelists and that, and all these mega pastors and mega churches come with their nonsense, they're not working for the gospel, and that's why these things cause pain. The point of the church is to spread the gospel, not make anyone rich. Subordination of individual interests. Personal interests must be subordinate to organizational interests. People cannot come in and do their own thing for their own benefit. Right? As we just said now, we can't have people in the church working to make themselves famous and rich. People must be working towards the gospel. All right? Personal interests must be subordinate to organizational interests. That's all there is to it. We've got no room for high maintenance people in ministry. Remuneration, motivation and productivity are close to one another as far as the smooth running of an organization is concerned. Remuneration must be sufficient to keep employees motivated and productive. For profit organizations, it's very true. People must be properly paid for the work they do. Sometimes that can be applied for salaried people of non-profits if you want to hold on to very skilled people. But people must be fairly remunerated. Okay, we must pay a living wage when we pay a wage. The Bible also says don't muzzle the ox when it's threshing corn. Right? If the ox is threshing the corn, let it eat. Right? People are entitled to be paid for the work they do. It's just fair. Degree of centralization. Management and authority for decision-making must be properly balanced within the organization. Now, this depends, it said it depends on the size and the type of the organization. But people must have the correct amounts of authority. The line manager mustn't now have the ability just to fire somebody on the spot. That's not balanced. Somebody up higher in an executive's decision must be able to do more things and so forth and so on. So people's authority must be balanced to the organization. The scalar chain, there must be a clear line, a chain of authority. In other words, chain of command is a better term people know more often. You must be able to follow the chain of command in a properly set up organization. You must be able to follow the chain of command. You can't, if you need to go from this person, especially if there's like a problem and you've got to go up in an organization, you must be able to follow the chain of command of who's boss, then the bigger boss until you eventually get to the top. Otherwise, the thing is not properly set up and organized, and it's going to become a chaotic mess. We must have a clear chain of authority. In the Christian church, it's deacon, it's the congregation, deacons, elders, the apostle. That's how it works in the church. Order. Employees must be organized and have the right resource at their disposal that can function properly. In addition to social order, the work environment must be safe, clean, and tidy. Like, as if that needs any more explanation. You can't work in a mess. It doesn't work that way. You've got to work in a properly organized place, a safe and clean environment, not a mess. Right? Pigs work in a mess there in the pigsty. Right? They go and work there in a mess. People must work in a clean, safe environment, and the church too must be kept tidy, clean, and safe. Same thing for a church. Church must be tidy, clean, and safe. Even in the old days, the church, the temple was maintained. There were people's job it was to keep it clean and keep everything functioning and fix everything. Keep all the lamps lit and so forth. Just how a church must be organized. Equity, employees must be treated kindly and equally. Okay? In other words, fairness. If equity is too big a word, replace it with fairness. Everyone must be treated fairly and the same. Okay, one set of rules. Okay, thousands and thousands of people, one set of rules. Simple that. Everybody obeys one set of rules. Finished. Can't have different rules for different people. That just brings pain. Stability of tenure of personnel. Management must strive to minimize employee turnover. Not really so relevant to the church, but definitely we can't have people coming and going. We must try and hire people according to their needs, put them in jobs where they flourish, and try and keep people so when they're hired, they tend to stay in a job. We can't have revolving door, because the thing is just end up with a bunch of inexperienced people. You've got no veterans. You've got no experienced people to be the backbone of the organization. So definitely we can't have revolving door people coming and going. Initiative. Employees should be allowed to express new ideas. People should be allowed to take the initiative. In other words, come up with your own new ideas. It doesn't mean we implement them every time someone has a suggestion, but people must feel free to contribute, to say, you know, what about this? And at least get an answer. If you give an idea, at least get an answer. And don't scream and shout. People have a point where people are too scared now to even speak up. Esprit de corps. Management must strive for the involvement and unity of all employees as a culture of mutual trust and understanding. In other words, company spirit. Organizations must have a good spirit. People must want to be part of them. All right, another one, 5 functions of management. Be prepared for the exam. You will need to speak about them. So he listed the first principles of management theory and classified the founding, a father of line and staff organization. Just a little bit of information about him. He has 6 general activities. He speaks about 5, but there's a 6th one. For industrial enterprises, technological, commercial, financial, security, accounting, managerial. He defined 5 functions of management, and these are still seen as relevant today. These 5 functions focus on relationship between personnel and management. They provide points of reference so problems can be solved. All right. So note well, it will come up in the exam. So the 5 functions of management: planning. All right. We have discussed planning, looking ahead, drawing up a plan of action. What we're going to do. Planning, what we're going to do. Planning needs a time frame. Okay, it must be linked at different levels of the organization, must take into account everything I have to work with. How am I going to do it? Right. So planning, how we're going to do it. We sit down, we work out how we're going to do it. We have to look at the organization's resources. All right, we have to look at what we got. You can't plan according to your dreams and wishes. You've got to plan according to what you've got. There's an old expression the old folks taught me when I was young. You've got to cut your coat according to your cloth. You can't just make any coat you want to. You've got to work with what the cloth you've got in your, on your table before you can cut your coat. Cut your coat according to your cloth. Work with, plan, what am I going to do with what I've got? Organization only function well if it's well organized. There must be sufficient capital, staff, and raw materials for the smooth running and good working structure. Right, so we must run the organization properly. We've got to have everybody working, doing their best, doing what they're supposed to be doing, with whom they're supposed to be doing it, when they're supposed to be doing it, how they're supposed to be doing it. All right. We can't in an organization. So planning what we're going to do, organizing how we're going to do it, and running it. Once the plan's in place, running the place. Commanding. When giving orders, clear working instructions, employees will know exactly what is required. Return from all the employees will be optimized if they are given concrete instructions with respect to the activities carried out. Commanding is very important. Telling people what to do, that they know what they're supposed to be doing. You need, for that yourself, you need to be given clear instructions so you know what to do. The people under you must know what to do. Right? You can't command by suggestion. You can't also command by being too authoritative and too aggressive. Clear commands. People know what to do and how they're supposed to do it. Coordinating. When all the activities are harmonized, the organization will function better. Positive influence of employees' behavior is important. Coordination aims to stimulate and motivate the discipline within the group. Right, so this is now, once we've commanded, once we've planned, once we've organized, coordinating the running of the business, keeping the thing running smoothly. Most of the time, this is what we're actually involved with, the coordination. Controlling. Right, it's a 4-step process, controlling. I just want to go to it. It's a 4-step process. Establish performance standards based on objectives. So we spoke about goals and objectives. So we say the goals and objectives, we set them. When the time comes, we take honest, no-nonsense measurement. Have we achieved our goals and objectives? So we set the objectives, realistic objectives. We measure and report on actual performance. So once we have an objective, we measure what we wanted compared to what we came out with. Right? What we wanted compared to what we actually did. We measure and report. That's called performance. All right? We set the goal. This is what we achieved. How have we performed? Compare results of performance against actual standards. I've actually said it. Okay, cold, hard, sober, fair look. Take corrective or preventative measures where needed. All right, so if we came up short, then we say, what do we have to do to make it next time around? Each step is about solving problems in a creative manner, finding solutions. That's what we're doing. Leading a successful team. All right, some ideas. I'm going to have to start speeding up here. Right, make your people feel safe. Right, make your people feel safe. There's a lot of parts. Right, so it means from one thing, it doesn't mean shouting, screaming, and bullying people. At the same time, it doesn't mean all can be physical safety in the workplace. People must feel safe in their jobs in any way you think about feeling safe. Make your people feel safe. Changing your mind, right? That's part of being adaptive. Change your mind. Doesn't mean we change our mind every 5 minutes for nonsense, but we change our mind if we find a better way of doing something. Be open to change your mind when you find a better way of doing a thing. Rather than being stubborn. Team bonding, right? Giving the people work together, right? So having a proper working environment, the people enjoy their jobs, want to be there, want to like each other. It's a lot easier said than done. But it's something we can strive towards, team bonding. Having empathy, having understanding. People have problems. Life isn't easy. That doesn't mean we give in to every complaint and moan. It doesn't mean we excuse bad work performance, but we are empathic. We do understand people's problems. Challenging your team, pushing people, right? Getting people to level up. This is the other side of empathy. People can do well. People can sometimes do better than they think themselves. Challenging people to work hard and solve problems and handle things on their own is part of it. We've got to be reasonable, but we also have to do it. Emotions. Emotions can be an enemy. All right, don't let emotions influence your decisions. Great leaders do what is right, even if it causes emotional pain. Right, we always take the right decision. Sometimes we have to dismiss. I know in my work, we do a lot of dismissal. Sometimes you feel sorry for the people. That's normal. But we always do what is right. Transparency, right? Honesty, not hiding things away from people, not lying. Right? That gets you buy-in, that gets you team bonding and a lot of other things. Acknowledgement and appreciation of your employees makes them feel valued, makes people feel valued in the workplace. Be decisive. Take decisions. Sometimes you'll be wrong. Sometimes you'll make mistakes. You admit your mistake. That's transparency. Come back, try again. But don't hesitate. If you lead the team then. Then be the leader. If it's your time to be the leader, be the leader. Take a decision. Manage conflict. Conflict will happen. We have to deal with it all the time in the church. Don't shy away from conflict. Manage conflict. Sometimes it's like little fires that pop up. You stamp them out, you don't have to deal with a whole house fire. Deal with it, open, fairly, transparently, open and fairly. Deal with conflict. Set a good example. Oh, the Bible's strong on this one. Leaders must lead by example. Leaders must show, they must, through example, others what's the right thing to do. Leaders lead by example. There's no better way of being a leader, and there's no better example than Jesus. Communication. Your team should know exactly what they must do. They must know exactly what's going on. They should always be kept up to date on what's happening. Set goals in conjunction with your team. Communication. People aren't left in the dark. Big one. Starts a lot of fights at work. There's no communication. Allow team members to do their job. If you've hired someone to do a job, do it. Don't micromanage and hover over the person. Let the person do their job. Sometimes we've got to let people make mistakes. I'm not saying let them burn the building down, but on small things, on tiny things. Let them make a few small mistakes. Show them. Don't micromanage. Make it fun. Work can be fun sometimes. Work can be enjoyable. We can enjoy ourselves at work. Church can be fun. It can be the joy of the Lord. Not every church service is a funeral service. We can have fun. Management styles, brothers and sisters, from here on out, a lot of the stuff is going to be in the assignment. It's nice. This is the time you can take a lot of things for the assignment. Right? Management style is a particular way managers go about accomplishing their goals. A good manager is one who adjusts their management style to suit different environments and employees. Paul spoke about, for the Jews I became a Jew, for the Gentiles I became a Gentile, the sinner is a sinner, but not a sinner unto God. Right? A lot has been said there. We have to adjust as long as we still do what is right. We don't have to adjust so much that we do the wrong thing. As long as we do what is right, we can adjust. Definitely, different organizations need different styles of management. Definitely. 3 basic styles. Now, brothers and sisters, please, this is in the assignment. You have to discuss at length the 3 basic styles: autocratic, democratic, and laissez-faire. All right? Internal and external factors. Companies that determine a management style include policies, priorities, culture, staff skill levels, motivation, management structures. A lot of things will dictate your style of management. Any adopted style must still adhere to the policies and procedures set forth by the organization. They must still be able to achieve company objectives. So you set your style according to what the company needs. All right, so I'm going to go through this, brothers and sisters. The autocratic style, and there's different variations. Take this, it's in the assignment. Controlling, right? Controlling managers. Little trust or confidence. I think anyone above 30 has met one of these managers in their life. Okay, the bully boss. All right? Manager dictates orders and the employees do exactly what is required. Employees tend to be unskilled. This requires constant teaching and coaching of the staff, as well as consistent supervision. Sometimes it's necessary, all right, depending who we deal with. But I think all of us have had a boss like this at one stage. The persuasive style. Manager still makes all the decisions, but convinces the employees these decisions are in their best interest. In other words, this is the guy that controls, but is a bit subtle. Right? Only difference is there's a bit of a higher level of trust between the staff. Right? So someone who uses the persuasive style. Paternalistic, in other words, a father figure. Manager still makes the decisions, but treats the employees in a condescending way. I think still 90% of us have had a boss like this. Manager explains his decisions. I put that in commas and the importance. The employees are made to feel taken care of, but may become resentful of not being taken seriously. In other words, this is the guy that treats the staff like a children. Okay? This is the one that treats them like children. You've probably had a boss like this too. Sometimes it can be necessary depending on the situation. But these are not for experienced staff and would not really apply to the church. Democratic style with its variations involves reaching decisions with the input of employees, but still being responsible for the final outcome. It's versatile and takes advantage of more perspectives. So this is the one where we consult the staff, but the problem is if you overdo it, you've got everybody putting input and everybody has to agree before we take the first step, that can become a mess. But with highly skilled employees, it can be a good style. Right, you've got the consultative variation where trust and confidence is placed in the employees and the manager seeks out their opinions. Participative is similar, but entrusts the employees completely to work together as a group. If you've got a group of highly skilled people, this one can work. Collaborative, managers communicate extensively with employees and make decisions by majority. This is to get everyone to take ownership in the decisions. The disadvantage is gained as the time-consuming, the majority decision is not always the best. So this is where we work all these three styles to one degree or another, getting everybody's input, everybody's buy-in. That's fine, that's all right. It has its drawbacks. It's definitely better, all these styles, for more highly skilled, highly trained staff. You don't want to do this with green staff. You're going to make a mess with new people. Also, sometimes I've used the examples. I know last year I spoke with Brother Daniel, who's a trained technician who's going to work for a boss who's an administrator. Sometimes you have to, when you've got highly skilled people in a department working under a boss, you've got to work with this kind of style, because there'll be people who know more about the thing than their boss knows about the thing. Think of something like a hospital administrator who's hired as an administrator. He's got doctors working underneath him. He's not a doctor necessarily himself. You can have a situation like that. Then you have to use one of these styles. The laissez-faire with its variations. There's little to no interference from managers. Staff don't need supervision. Managers take a hands-off approach. Works best in organizations with flatter structures and highly skilled staff. All right. Let's just say, brothers and sisters, some people are just lazy and some bosses take this approach, whether it's appropriate or not. But this is the one only for highly skilled staff. Delegative. Delegating. I'm sure we've all heard about delegating. Employees are allowed to take full responsibility for work, staff. Tasks are assigned with little direction. The drawbacks are lack of uniformity and uncoordinated efforts. The problem is this: it's one thing to delegate to a responsible, skilled person who's going to do the thing right. You can take a very big chance, brothers and sisters, if you delegate your responsibilities away as a leader. If there's a mess, you're going to be held responsible. It can work. One of the things I know, it's been mentioned, that a thing like this can work in the military, in special forces, where a team of people are left behind enemy lines to go and sow havoc. Think of right now the Ukrainian war. Thing like this works. You deploy them behind the enemy lines, let them do their own thing. But they are highly skilled, highly trained, highly motivated people. All right? They will find their own direction. You cannot do this with new employees, with young employees. Don't do this. Those of you hiring 18, 19-year-olds in your startup businesses, you don't want to touch this. You're asking for a big mess. Bossless or self-managed teams. Employees are highly skilled, highly educated, and know more about the work than their managers. They can report directly to directors. A variation on this I've definitely held in the intelligence community, not necessarily the military. In the intelligence community, you can have a team of people who are spying for the country that reports directly to the cabinet and to the president. A thing like this. People doing clandestine work. Something like this is not a bad idea. A team of spies spy, they report directly to the cabinet via back channels. Things like this can be done with informants and so forth, and stuff like this, where you've got to work outside established structures. Management by walking around. It's not an actual management style, but these managers place importance on interpersonal communications, the employees and the status of projects. We do practice this at my work in a different way. There's a type of this practice where we have a general manager that walks on the floor, but is directed at the customers. It goes and makes a fuss of the big, important customers. We have some things called high rollers. They spend a lot of money. And the general manager will walk and speak with them sort of to butter them up and keep them happy. All right, Jesus, our example. All these management styles have a downside and are worldly. Christian leaders, we should be important. It's important that we have our Jesus, our servant leader, as an example. All right. Jesus led by example. Servant leaders seek the best for their followers, and sometimes this can lead to missing the vision. Even though servant leaders serve their followers, they should still lead, which means we need to strive to grow our followers. Right? A good leader is able to get others to grab the vision and run with it. Jesus certainly succeeded at that. All right. We are down to 5 minutes. Business management is more than telling employees what to do. Managers must understand the business organization and will have thorough understanding of particular market, relevant technologies and policies. Right, it speaks here about management versus leadership skills. Management skills overlap with leadership skills, but there's a bit of a difference here, brothers and sisters. Again, some of the stuff in the next slide, communication, trading, planning, keep it in mind, keep these notes for the assignment. They'll be very useful. It speaks, managers need to communicate ideas and instructions, training, big part of leadership, training. Big part of Christian leadership, training, learning. That's what this whole school, that's what we're doing here. Train, learn. Study the word every day. The Bible encourages. Planning, managers may or not be involved in drafting the company policy, but those who aren't must still be able to plan. You've got to plan with what you've got to do what you need to do. Organization, delegating, coordinating. Again, we have covered this. Oversight. This is the maintenance phase of management and means keeping track of what's going on and setting right anything that's not working. It might include anything from reviewing business models to checking for insufficiencies and making sure a project is on time and on budget. Oversight. All right? Controlling, running the organization. Feedback. This is when you get reports from staff about what they've done, how they've performed in reaching their objectives, what the results are, determine what has worked and what hasn't worked, and what the reasons were. Right, feedback, important part of management. Directing, this is where you take charge and make decisions. This is like commanding. You communicate to your people what must be done, the problems that need to be addressed. They may have to re-strategize. Right, directing, commanding. Time management, the last slide. Right, let me just, last time check here. All right, leaders need to lead by example. If you're always late, don't expect your people to be on time. Time management, important part of management, folks. You only got so many hours in a day. All right, no one I know in the New Testament had a ministry where they can stop time and have extra hours in a day. It was done once in the Old Testament, and that's it. So folks, you've got to use, you only got so many hours and we need to use our time. As leaders, we need to be time conscious. We need to make sure that we're on time, that our projects are also completed on time. You must set realistic time goals. Don't compromise, sacrifice. Again, I put there SMART, have SMART, Google that, SMART goals. Simple, measurable, I've forgotten the A, realistic and time orientated. If you want to be more productive, then work on your time management. All right. Amen, brothers and sisters.